let's get into Top Hat. What we do here is we go around the room. We're going to do it very quickly because there's a lot of you. Who are you, and what are some of the specific questions that you'd like answered today? And this helps us be really responsive, or try to be really responsive, so that you don't leave thinking, well, that was a total waste of my time because I didn't get any of my questions answered. Who would like to start? Oh, wait. I'm going to remember this. All right, online we have Lauren and Haley. Hi, Haley. And hi, Lauren. All right. Live stream, they're figuring stuff out. Spade. Okay, no questions yet. Good. Who in here would like to start? James.
I'll start. Just so you know, I'm James McKay. I'm on the Learn UW team, but I'm also kind of the product manager for Top Hat. So I liaise directly with people at Top Hat. What my interest is I work kind of with Top Hat, and I work with instructional designers, but I don't meet as frequently with faculty who are actually using the product. So sometimes there's a bit of disconnect. Number one, I want you to know that if you are a faculty and you're using the product and you have questions or you have issues, you can reach out to me. I have kind of a direct contact there, and they're very responsive to any questions, issues, or whatever we have. But also because I want to kind of hear about your experience. We have a lot of influence as far as how they interact with our faculty, so I want to hear if there's good things, bad things, whatever.
And you're talking faculty, lowercase f, teaching instructors. All right, very good. Mallory.
Yeah, I'm Mallory Conlon. I'm also on the Learn at UW team. I work as a technology consultant, but I mostly work with Pressbooks and now B&E. So I'm just interested in how everybody's using Top Hat. It's a pretty new tool to me.
All right. And Dan, quickly.
I'm Dan Powell. I work here at UAT, and I am in the REACH project working with several other people in the room. So Jacob over there in mechanics of materials, Shivam in anthropology, and Shiva in mechanics of materials.
All right, Shiva.
Hi, I'm Shiva Rudraju, mechanical engineering, and as Dan said, we are here to figure out how we can use Top Hat, mainly maybe for quizzes and other stuff in the context of the REACH program we are going through that course.
Great. Michelle, can you jump to you?
Yeah, Michelle Hennings. I'm with Academic Technology and ditto to what those guys said.
Okay, how to use. Duncan.
Faculty in physics, busy.
And you've been using Top Hat for a long time, so.
I've been using Top Hat for a long time.
All right. Dustin.
Dustin, emeritus in African and Cultural Studies, and just here to learn.
All right. Sarah?
I'm Sarah. I'm a new instructor in the Delta program, and it's a new tool to me, so here to learn as well.
All right. Eduardo.
Hi, I'm Eduardo. I'm a PhD student in Applied and Agricultural Economics. Here to learn the base Top Hat, and also some troubleshooting with more technical stuff that happens. So.
All right. Good. Troubleshooting. Jerome.
Hi, I'm Jerome. I'm in anthropology. I teach our very large course. I've used Top Hat in that class for the past 4 or 5 years. I've used it, I've dropped it, I've gone back to using it. So I don't know that there's really much more I need to learn, but I'm be happy to share my experience.
Excellent. Jacob.
I'm Jacob. I'm from engineering physics. I'm one of the people working with Dan on REACH for mechanics of materials. I've never used Top Hat, so I'm interested in seeing especially hands-on type things.
All right. Cliff.
Cliff Cunningham. I work with James and Mallory in the Learn UW team, just here to learn and support.
Very good. Kenny?
I'm a grad student in the kinesiology department. Heard some things about Top Hat, so I was curious how it's used and if there's any Canvas integration as well.
All right. Canvas integration. I'll write that down. Lindy.
I'm Lindy. I work in the chemistry department. I'm the course coordinator for Kim 104, and I'm interested in hearing if anybody has imported their classroom materials directly into Top Hat and used that as the presentation tool. 104 uses it heavily, but we use it with the floating widget on top of a PowerPoint slide. So I'd like to know. We lose a lot of functionality because of that.
All right. I'm going to call that Top Hat classroom uploads. It might not be the right term, but we know what I'm talking about, right? Good.
Yeah. I'm Leah. I'm also in the chemistry department. I just joined this semester, so I've been learning Top Hat, Canvas, everything at the same time.
Oh, so fun.
So trying to see what everybody is doing and how we can implement it.
Keep your head above water. Good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm one of Lindy's minions. Her favorite minion, I'm sure. No, I'm a half-time research postdoc and half-time instructor at Teach 104, and we've been using Top Hat, so I'm curious just to see if there's things
Great.
not so.
Things I haven't
glitchy
thought of.
on
I'm gonna write
my-
that down.
yeah.
Katie.
Yeah, I'm Katie. I'm third chemistry 104 instructor here, and I'm also just use it in class, but very sort of surface level. So I'm interested to see like what you guys do, what there are.
All right, Margaret.
Hey, I'm Margaret. I'm a grad student at the iSchool, but work here with John in active teaching and trying to manage all the technology today.
Yeah, she's helping me make things work. All right, then online we have, in another context, okay, that is a question, I think. In another context, my colleagues and I ran into difficulty with preloaded PowerPoints versus preloaded PowerPoint PDFs. I think, Lindy, this is your question. And the PDFs worked better, but that still wouldn't really explain why I. Oh. Ah. All right, this is why this is not recommended. Don't ever interrupt your class like that.
Actually,
Lindy,
John.
do you?
Cool.
Do you guys? Oh, we're from the.
Yeah, we have
Oh,
med school.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Karen and Megan.
Yeah. And I have a specific question for that. We're Karen and Megan, and we do use Top Hat at the med school. We use it in our labs as a form of taking attendance and some like extra points that they get. But there's people that work with us that have put their PowerPoints into Top Hat,
Right.
and it doesn't look great. Like it cuts off
Right.
bottom
Mhm.
strip.
Right,
in
so I
the
think
slides,
I think
so.
Christian, you played with importing it a little bit.
Ended up using it, but I just tried it out.
Yeah. So I didn't know if there's.
Yeah, it has not seemed like, we have not found a solution that makes the effort of getting everything in, the payoff hasn't been there yet,
Mhm.
but we're leaving so much functionality on the table, because basically we're just doing the quick ask and getting the, the 4 or 5 multiple choice, so.
So there's something here. It seems like that when you do import it, you have to reformat your slides to keep in mind that there's going to be differences in it. And I wonder if there's a difference between the 4:3 format versus the 16:9 format. I see Mallory shaking.
Well, I don't know if that's right. I was just
But
thinking that. Yeah.
sounds like it might be the case. James says.
Right, and another thing to keep in mind is that Top Hat, their whole model is they're trying to push you into using the actual tool itself to build content rather than importing. Like, I've had to stress to them that a lot of our instructors use that little hovering presentation bar because otherwise they would have stopped supporting it because they don't want to outside of Top Hat.
It's a money-making thing for Top Hat, right? The more people get more rooted and invested in it, the better it is for their system. On the other hand, the simpler it is for instructors, the more instructors are going to use it because not everybody's going to be able to dedicate as much time to trying to figure out the intricacies of it. But we have people who have used it for a long time. Any pushback on that?
Well, I used the hovering widget. I gave up on well, the maintenance of trying to keep 2 copies of stuff is just too much. As for the presentation, I prefer having that minimized. And I can keep all everything in place. It works. It's great. I've had a couple of hiccups now and again trying to interface my laptop to the
So
presentation system, but you get back up, but that's squared away. So.
Do you use your Mac
Yeah.
laptop?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I found too. It will work on PC and Mac OSs in terms of presentation mode, but you can't use an iPad Pro because the iOS instance of it won't let you toggle. Like I could not get the iOS to have the widget at the same time that the PowerPoint was going. You couldn't do the instructor mode, I don't think, from the.
Did you call Top Hat about that?
I did not, because I was doing that in anticipation that somebody I supported would want to do that, and nobody has.
My co-teacher does that, and it's about mirroring. And if you talk to me, I put you in touch and solve it.
Okay.
As you say, Top Hat is actually very proud. Like, if you go to anything where they're in charge, they walk around with mobile devices and run the whole class on those. So I know that they're developing for that, so it could just be I didn't realize this was here kind of a thing.
Okay, yeah, it felt like I was gonna have to make the full jump in, use their slides within their system to make it work on the iPad, but it sounds like there's a workaround.
Is anyone else here using the tablet to run the course? Anyone, or have you seen any of that? Any experience with that? Okay, no. So just the Top Hat reps who live and breathe it and want to show that everybody who has one of these, you can just use this and store it wherever. Yes, Duncan.
So I did have an agenda coming here. Sorry, I was trying to, it was a fail getting with a student account on the app, but I'm very interested in Top Hat test.
Top Hat testing.
Yeah, so I just want to log that, and I've made some agitation for it.
And Top Hat testing is a thing
so
that...
It's a lockdown browser, so you can do your exams locked down on this, and make all your questions in Top Hat, yada yada. I really want to do that. I would prefer to do it in Canvas, but there's not available a non-vendor tied Canvas lockdown browser. I think there's only one that the med school has, but like Top Hat, they're trying to get you to use their stuff. So it doesn't allow you to use your native Canvas. So that's what I would very much prefer. In the interim, and I'm going to start giving tests just using Canvas and hovering video cameras to frighten students. There's so much to have. There's so many advantages to having a Canvas, all the material and instructor access and immediate feedback and automatic grading and yada yada yada. So, but in the interim, I'm still very interested in. So the problem with Top Hat test is there's additional charge. It's like $10
For the students.
Yes.
For the whole
on top
license.
of the thing, yeah.
Okay.
So what I would like is that you negotiate to have the contract changed so that it includes Top Hat testing. It's one charge. So you don't, charge them for the classroom and then say, oh, by the way, to take a test, it's going to cost you $10. They're going to get. I'd be uncomfortable. I won't do that. So, but if it's bundled and hidden.
I will say for most, like if you were wanting to do testing online and having a lockdown browser or having like a virtual proctor or something like that, it usually is, no matter what company you work with, paid on a per test basis as an additional fee in addition to the course. So I don't know if that's something that Top Hat would even consider.
No, they charge it. They will offer it, but the students have to pay $10 a semester. So.
And Mallory's actually, we have a campus initiative to look at online testing proctoring software right now. So there is a group on campus attempting to help answer that question.
I'm not interested in proctoring. I just want the lockdown.
The lockdown.
But that's a automatic way of doing online proctoring. So not having a live person there, but having a way to secure a browser so a student can't Google a question.
It's the low end.
Exactly.
Lowest end,
Exactly.
proctoring with no
So yeah,
proctoring.
they're looking into that. So that's on the horizon somewhere to have that for everybody on campus.
And this is a good thing to also talk about, because this ties into a couple of larger issues. First of all, we have been advised that having students have to pay for testing software could be could potentially run afoul of some Wisconsin state statutes.
So this is malarkey. I've heard this.
I know. I'm just saying. We have been advised that there could be issues there, so it's something we're trying to get some clarification on from legal. So that's one reason why we haven't just given the license. Like usually if an instructor comes to us and says we want to use Top Hat test, we're like, we're not ready to support that on our campus right now. The other part of this is, as you say, the cost part. And frankly, what I've been trying to do is to get us to move to an institutional model where it is no longer students pay themselves, but the institution buys a license for the entire campus. It's something that we've kind of been bubbling up. So feel free to put whatever pressure you want on administrators and campus leaders to say, this will really help us use this tool more effectively if we aren't nickel and diming students with it, but we just buy an institutional license.
So on that, the place to go for that is the TL Tag group, the Teaching and Learning Advisory Group, and that's just it.wisc.edu, and if you search for TL Tag on the WISC. I know that they've got a subgroup that you'll be able to see who are the people on that you can go talk to and where that we're getting our advice from. Let's move back to Top Hat in general, though. Very large courses, you said 700? 800. Okay, very large classes. Small class, who is the small class size for using Top Hat? At what point does it not make sense to use Top Hat, I guess is what I'm questioning. Does anyone say, oh, I've used it with my seminar group of 12 people and it's not worth it? Or what is that low end? that we have experience with. How
Well,
many,
I'm not, I won't address this directly, but active learning with us with Top Hat or whatever has been used in, it's now advanced, it's like got a launch in physics with clickers, and now it's actually advancing into as far as advanced undergraduate classes. That's a preface to, I think it can be used with a very small group. I've been trying to get my TAs to adopt it for discussion section and lab, not very effectively, but I think that there are all kinds of innovative ways that can be used in a smaller group. Minimal group size is 3 or 4.
Yeah, okay. And to that point, if you get 3 people responding to a question, they all 3 respond. Versus if you do live and you say, all right, who has that? You, or you. Now you don't ask all 3 of them because you can't do it simultaneously. But with the Top Hat, they can answer simultaneously. Do a quick check to see. I don't know if you had 3 people, if the anonymous one would work out so well, but you can test these things out.
One of the amazing things I've found that, I for years I'd stand up in front of class in the beginning of class or take a break and say, are there any questions? And that's the answer I'd get. And you wait and wait, and eventually someone, just in order to get the class moving, comes up with some question, but it's not a question that anyone else is necessarily interested in. So you just wasted 5 minutes of everybody's time. With Top Hat, I have to avoid doing this. I started out, asking any general questions at the beginning of class, and I get 100% response. I only have 80 students, but it's a phase change, so I got 80 questions. And I use the open-ended questions, so they all scroll up in front. And they're all really interested to see everybody else's question.
Okay.
But the ones they aren't interested in, of course, they breeze through. You can vote them up and down, right? But they really want to get their question out. And some of them are funny and so on and so forth. But the problem is I can't answer them all. So, sometimes I'll whip through them and grab some, but then I'll answer them offline. But it's 100x improvement. And if I had 1,000 students, it would be 1,000x improvement, although I'd be buried.
Right. Well, and I wonder if this is where you can have things like, so I love this idea of using the digital space in the devices that they have to get those questions up and documented so that you can go back later on. Maybe you can copy paste them into Piazza and say, hey, students, answer each other's questions, and I'll jump in every once in a while. You talked about upvoting them, so you can answer the top 2 or 3, 5 voted ones. Does anyone else do that? The upvoting?
Can I ask a question of Duncan?
Sure.
Are you doing that from the floating widget?
Yeah, it's just an open-ended question, but then they all their as they answer, they all
It just
scroll.
shows up,
They
okay.
show up and scroll up and down.
Okay.
And so they can all see the other students' questions and go like, oh, that's what everybody's thinking, right? It's a great normalizer because now everybody knows what everybody's thinking about, and people are all thinking different directions and so on. There's some common questions, but I think it really binds the group together to do that. And then later, and then of course it tells me what people are thinking.
Yeah, for the instructor, that's
a
super
lot more
valuable as
direct
well.
than like probing them with a multiple choice question on one topic you thought of. Right?
So it's like an instantaneous Muddy's Point, is basically what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, but with full participation.
And it's already digitized, so you don't have to, like, if you wanted to get that information into
It's done.
a document, it's already done, yeah.
All right. I'm going to write this up here, ask students what questions they have. Any horror stories?
Particularly early in the semester, there sometimes seems to be bandwidth issues. Like I know one instructor wanted to do, there's a cool functionality in Top Hat where you can have a map or an image and you can do heat.
The hotspots?
Yeah, hotspots, and so people can, you can test where Berlin is or whatever, or like anatomy. And she didn't realize it, but she had these huge files that she was using as pictures, and it just never loaded for the students. So it's just important that when you use Top Hat, first time, get your toe wet, don't jump in whole hog, and as you get comfortable with it, and it's what it can do and can't do, then you can do more and more. If you start off, like this professor, I think unfortunately, like went very heavy on images initially, and so it was like she had to completely rethink her use of Top Hat for the rest of the semester, because troubleshooting it, there wasn't a quick fix.
So that's just, I mean, and that's, having a low-res image would solve that. If you
Yeah,
have
well,
like a,
at the same time, we were having networking issues on campus, so it was one
Okay.
of those, is it this, is it that?
the perfect storm. Yes, so Roger.
On a related note, some classrooms also don't look very friendly. So, instructor I know was just teaching the humanities in the basements, like a bunker, and a lot of problems for connection for students. So I don't even know if there's any way around it to be offline some way.
But I will say, if you are in a classroom where you are having network issues, you can contact me, and I can at least let network services know and be like, is there any way we can boost in that room? We've had multiple instructors complain about it.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, talk to the help desk on that, because we've got networking geniuses and they can put in another piece of equipment or shoot that one up a little bit. Jerome, you related.
Actually, the first years I've used Top Hat, I used to spend most of my interaction with students. They were dictated by, I could not submit my answer, my question didn't go through, blah, 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 blah. I've had very few of these this semester. A few things have changed. Top Hat now has the ability to actually submit answers offline. So you can set that up as you set up your course, you select this option, and it's quite complicated. Students have to do a lot of work, so there needs to be communications to the students early on to teach them how that can actually work. But that's an option that I will say it seems to be working just based on the fact that I'm having less complaints. The way that the questions are graded also really have changed students' engagement with the tool. So I dropped, I think now, between a third and a quarter of the grades. So students are not freaking out just because they missed one question. It's like, you know what, you're okay. You're fine. The grades are aggregated weekly, and I dropped, I think, the 4 lowest grades, weekly grade for the semester. So missing one question is not a big deal. And these two things combined mean that I have very few complaints. I also have a template email that when I do get one of these emails, it's like, okay, sorry, no, I will not change your grade, but here's what you can do, and there's instructions on how to submit offline answers, etc. And that seems to be working pretty well overall.
And I love the idea of dropping, a couple of grades, because the stress involved with that for students is like, oh no, I'm missing points, but I shouldn't. I know the answer. Something else happened. It's in the way, and that raises all kinds of issues.
Yeah.
Dan, and then Megan. I'm sorry.
So in the other course that I advise on that's here from, we use Top Hat a lot.
Can you speak up just a little
Yeah,
more?
the instructor uses Top Hat a lot, and the tricky part for us has been figuring out which types of questions are the Top Hat questions, which ones really are better in Canvas, which ones work better on paper, and trying to find, different types of questions or questions used for different purposes, or the timing of when you want to use the results. There's a lot of factors that have meant that sometimes we tried something in Top Hat and then moved it over to Canvas, and then sometimes back to Top Hat, and sometimes just decided to have them write it on this piece of paper. And so I'm curious during this conversation today to listen to what people have found to be really the Top Hat friendly questions that really work through this tool as opposed to other.
So what is the best format for different types of questions? Quick response from those of you who have tried different things.
Multiple choice works well.
Multiple choice is tried and true, right?
The hotspot works pretty well for us. What was the one that didn't? I think it was the matching?
Matching is
Matching,
tricky, yeah.
it gets messed up depending on what they're using to answer, because sometimes it won't work on the app and sometimes it will. It just doesn't quite, the way that it shows up doesn't look like it's in the correct order that they had done. So students had a lot of questions with that.
Not matching.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that might just be the app, because I think matching works okay on I think it works okay on a laptop, but not necessarily like a phone.
So if you've got a large group of students and they're not all going to have the laptop, so please cover the biggest ones.
Yep.
So I just want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier about when to use it. Do you want to use it with a small class? Do you want to use it with large classes? When I first started using TopPad, it was mostly a way of doing with students with a large group what I could do in a small seminar very effectively with just pen, paper, and people moving around. I couldn't do that with 800 students, but most of my TopPad activities were designed sort of something that could just as easily be implemented without TopPads, and I've done it too, and it worked brilliantly actually, with just students sharing pieces of paper and passing them around the room. Makes a mess, but that's the worst that happens. But I will say that there's one thing that now, as I try to be more intentional about what the tool can do, the questions that ask students to work in, basically fill in a blank or type in a word answer that you can use to generate a word cloud. It's something that you can't do if you don't have the technology available, and it could be very effective way of just getting at some of the things that students think about, like instantly generating word clouds based on the answer on a question where they've typed up the answer rather than a multiple choice. It works brilliantly actually, but you have to think very carefully about how you ask the questions so that the words that are generated are meaningful.
But if thought out.
But I mean, that's true on everything, right?
Yeah.
It's best to actually think
invisible
about what
disclaimer,
you're
I can
asking.
put that for all of them.
Yeah.
I have
Okay.
two things. One of the reasons I really like TopPad and I end up choosing is it supports LaTeX. So I make my first year students learn LaTeX, and they can write beautiful math. So I can ask them for the formula, and with vector notation and whatever you want. That's very useful.
So
I
because
don't-
TopPad supports LaTeX, does anyone else use it for LaTeX and have the students learn LaTeX? LaTeX, a mathematical formula, language.
It's very handy because also Canvas supports it, so students can write in LaTeX in response to a quiz or whatever. So that's one thing, but maybe that's a geeky STEM thing. I did want to say that I've tried the drawing thing, and it's cool.
You've tried the what?
Using the drawing feedback.
The drawing feedback. Has anyone else tried it?
I ask a general question. So I teach them Feynman diagrams, which is a cool way to draw particle physics processes. And then I ask them to give me a Feynman diagram for a process, and they draw it and follow. It's awesome. And it scrolls by, and everyone looks, and I can immediately go, "You're nuts, perfect," whatever, as it scrolls by, and I really like the instant feedback on it. What I'm really impressed with the new iPads. Their drawing capability is just beautiful. And what I'm wondering is, I'll ask if anyone has students using TopPad on something that can really draw. I mean, on your phone, you're just kind of
Right.
your finger, and right. But the possibilities there. In physics, I would have them give me the whole problem answered with a sketch and everything, right, on an iPad, and then they can boom, 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 and see what everyone else has done.
And there again, there's some great social learning where they can see, oh, I understand it like this, but somebody else may have
Someone else did
represented
it
it
the
in a
other
different
way.
way that is also correct.
Right. So instead of dragging some student to the board that the other students can't really see anyway and haven't worked the problem, which was the old way, 100x, right? Everybody does it. Everybody shares. They get anonymity, if I pronounce that right. So now they don't have a problem.
Yeah.
And everybody's doing it instead of one person being pegged with the board.
And
can't
then you
see
get to
what they're
document
doing
those
anyway.
as well, and you can actually put them in and grade them later on.
Right, yes. So, but they could all be seeing them and sharing and working. I can see what you're doing and and as I draw my sketch.
All right, I see.
I think it's going to be.
Karen
really
and
cool.
Megan, your gears were turning there.
Put in a picture that they draw on
So-
top of, or is it just a white
So
surface?
this is what I would love. I have my students use the phones to take to submit a quiz. They just take a phone picture of their written work and they upload it to Canvas. What I would love is if TopPad supported images, and I asked them for that. So then, we're in lab, right? And students have got some graph or whatever, and now same thing. Click, boom, it's in TopPad. We all see them. There's not like go upload, go download, sort, go download from some Canvas thing. It's like, right, instant.
Can I have you repeat? You wish that TopPad would support what
It
images?
supports being able to upload files.
Upload images, yeah, and I would just limit it to
Oh, so like they could draw something on a paper, take a picture of it rather than
Or
try
I
to
would have
draw
them, you know,
here.
I'm in the lab and this is what my data looks like, or this is the instrument I'm using right now and how I'm using it, and let's share it, right?
Okay.
And that can be an assigned, that can be for credit, right, you know, too. But aside from just the drawings thing is cool, but being able to just do the drawings with a quick image, I think would be very enabling. And I think the drawings thing is just going to go crazy with now the technology has the drawing down.
All right, I'm writing down student submitted drawing, and you can currently do that on the app. Best if you have a 12-inch iPad with an Apple Pencil.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you can still kind of do a bad one on your phone. Has anyone else seen that, or how many of your students come in with iPads? I think that was in many ways the tool, the learning tool of the future, and that kind of, now people have Chromebooks and just their phones. Am I right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I have not looked out into the audience with that particular question, but I'd say in our chem classes it's probably about 10%.
Yeah.
It seems to be more laptop or phones.
Okay.
There are some people, though it's hard to tell too when people have the laptop or the tablet computer hybrid where they can write on their
Right.
screen. But in terms of just iPads in general.
The phones are getting bigger too.
Right. And now they unfold, or soon, but those are expensive. You might as well have an iPad at that point. I did a survey of 94 physiology seniors as they were getting ready to graduate, and I said, look back on the last 45, however many years that you've been here, what are your favorite tech-related tools and your least favorite ones and your experiences with them? Keep in mind that these are seniors, so they had Moodle and D2L and clickers and iClickers and all these things back and forth, and there's been quite a bit of chaos in the last couple of years, and maybe now we're trying to simplify things and make them a little bit better. So some of the top things that came out were, a lot of them really liked Top Hat, and yet a lot of them really didn't like. I coded these clickers including Top Hat. I didn't separate them out yet, so sorry. But it showed up in both categories, and they said that they absolutely hated clickers if they were required and the instructor didn't use them. That makes sense. You just made me waste my money on this thing that I don't use. They hated it if they only use them for attendance, because it's a really expensive way to keep your thumb on me to make sure that I show up at course. But they really, really loved it. I think for a lot of the things that Duncan was saying, they can anonymously or even for a grade, no, let me roll that back. They don't like those graded assignments with Top Hat because the pressure is on in the moment to perform, and maybe they don't have it yet, so it's it's like a pop quiz. Nobody likes the pop quizzes. They're probably good for us, but nobody likes them.
I don't agree with that. That's the scuttlebutt. But I do half credit. Every question's a point.
Okay.
Half credit, half participation, half for credit. So you do get a little extra if you get it right, but you aren't completely lost if you don't. And it's all very low stakes, and there are hundreds of these, and it's a few percent of your grade anyway. So people don't sweat it. I have asked my students how they like it and at what level. And interestingly, what I limit it, so it's not like just relentless Top Hat questions, pressure, yada yada yada. Right? I do maybe 3 or 4 max.
So 3 or 4 per class, and it's low credit, half just to participate, and half if you get it right, half a point.
And the feedback is I'm really glad it keeps me on task.
It keeps me awake. It keeps me paying attention.
Yeah.
That's true. We've also heard that. They reluctantly said that. You were going to add?
Yeah, I'm going to add that I used to have half a point for participation, half a point for getting the question right. But the thing is that those grades display as percentages to students. So when they see a grade, when they have a 50% and they answered all the questions, but they just didn't get it right, that hurts. And they get pissed off. Rightly so. So I've changed the grading to 1.5 points for participation and half a point for getting it right. At least they get 75% for participating, and still 25% is actually a significant grade difference, right, for not getting it right. And I get a lot less complaints. So, you know, that half point seems like not a lot for us if we think in terms of half point for students that see, oh, my participation, my top hat grade this week is 50%.
How much of their total grade is?
It's about, I think, 5% of their total grade, but they will nickel and
department?
dime you on every half point.
What department?
Anthropology? Yeah.
All right, so tweak the grades to make the students happy and to get them to want to participate more. And
it may well depend. I mean, I'm teaching majors in the first years, but it's not like everybody who takes it. That's huge, right? Catches a lot of different people with different motivations.
Yeah.
So it may well depend on who your customers are.
And as they get used to it, I imagine, like, if Top Hat is used over and over again, it just becomes part of the learning tools, like a textbook, like a number 2 pencil, or computer, etc. Eduardo?
I'd like to go back a little bit to the topic we were before on tablets and computers, laptops. I would like to hear if anyone had an issue with students not having access to technology.
Oh,
I
yes.
know that's most people have nowadays, but like if you have one person in class doesn't have a phone or is like how can you require Top Hat?
Good. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, so
Lindy.
when chemistry adopted Top Hat, we basically, Top Hat was rolled out about the time our REACH courses were rolled out, so it was hand in hand. And so we had.
For those of you who are not familiar yet, REACH is a high enrollment course redesign for more active learning.
Yeah, so
Generally,
anthropology
right?
and physics, you guys all part of that group. But the department bought some tablets to have as loaners for students who might need it, and that was when our lectures were still, our whole classes were still in the building. We still had lecture halls then. But so the tablets were right down the hall, and they very rarely got asked for. So they were there. It was something that was available, but it really turned out to be not needed too much. And if there's a student here or there who has issues with the technology, sometimes they just arrange things with an instructor that they will write down what their answers would have been or something. There's something they can kind of figure out on a one-on-one, but it's really, have you all had any students who haven't had the technology?
So I'd worry about.
You can text too.
Yeah, you
text
can do
it.
the text. You can,
Yeah.
and it now show. It used to that it didn't show up on the screen to know, or it showed up in kind of an inconvenient place. But now it's at the top, and it'll tell you exactly the number to text. And I've had students just take it on paper, too.
Yeah, I was thinking about just being the first day of class to let them know if there's any issue to try to accommodate it. Or provide, hey, you can check out some equipment in the lab or something.
So tablets available, you said paper?
Yeah.
They just write it down on paper and then they hand it to the front right away?
Yeah, because we have it, because we're in the labs and we have 3 different labs, we can't have a screen in front of them, they just won't fit, so everything shows up just on their tablet or their phone or laptop, and then if it's not working, if the internet's not working or something, because I run everything off of my laptop in my office, which is the next room over, and they just come to my office and I give them a piece of paper and then I enter it manually after.
All right, James?
Top Hat has actually promised that if there's any student who does not have a mobile device, they will send them one for the semester. They don't advertise this
Really?
loudly, but they have told me.
What
So-
kind of device?
Right, not good enough.
So if you ever do have a student who doesn't have a device, tell them to call Top Hat, and then loop me in, because they have promised me that this is an assurance that they're giving, because they want to make sure no student who is disadvantaged doesn't get an opportunity to use the technology to its fullest.
Yeah, we should use it.
So
That's an interesting point.
I would love to try and hold them accountable to that promise.
And Dan?
We did have one student who refused to bring a device to class.
So it wasn't that they didn't have access, it was that they didn't, they were fundamentally opposed to it.
But, I mean, it made me wonder about screen addiction as an impending issue that we'll probably have to start making accommodations for, but at the same time, it was not hard in that case to just say, okay, write on a sheet of paper, we'll pick it up. Another possibility would be his neighbor's phone. You know, he could have been submitting his answers to somebody else's device.
On a private browser or.
There's enough other devices in the room that, there's enough people that come with more than one device in the room that somebody at the table could easily share it.
Then did I say something up here? Yes.
Yeah, in the first years that I used it, I encouraged students who did not have a device to go check out a laptop from the library, and there were few enough, even with a very large enrollment course, there were few enough, and we still had a library in our building back then, that students could check out a laptop, and the device was not an issue.
Okay. And I'm feeling like it's gonna be less and less of an issue as when students now have multiple devices that they bring with them oftentimes. Are there other things that we have not talked about here that you're like, John, in the last 7 minutes, we need to make sure that we talk about this? I feel like we've touched on the brilliant uses with the drawing, like that I think is a really nice one. And just having the students be able to see the feed that goes by and what others are thinking, that's good. Megan?
It's not up there, but does anybody use this for attendance at all and use the geo-fencing feature?
Oh, right. Rather than have the students phone in from their home
So
or apartment.
I do use it for attendance, and I make attendance count. And for change, but students are good with math, particularly physics matters. The attendance has improved as a consequence. I think students really like that they showed up, and they should be recognized for that. I mean, I think it's really positive. It's a really positive thing. And if they miss an attendance, it's not. They'll ask me, they came in late or whatever, so they missed that attendance bell and we're off and running. They'll email me, and it's very easy on Top Hat to find them and click attended.
Okay.
So I just respond to those, and I appreciate it. So I love the attendance feature of the thing, and strongly encourage people to use it. I think it's a really positive feedback and acknowledgement when students got out of bed and got to your 8:50 or whatever it was, and I think they really appreciate that it counts.
So the attendance feature, it automatically does the geofencing, is that right?
I don't use it
Yes.
for fencing. I don't bother.
Well, so
No,
there's
you
a way
can
that you can
enable
do
it
it.
or turn
Yeah,
it on.
and
You
we
can
have it
on.
enabled where they have to be, and I think so we're at this building right here, and it's like close enough that, so it runs off of my laptop, and then the 3 labs are close enough, but if somebody's like over here in the social work library, it would count them as absent.
Okay.
So it's small enough that it can do that, because I've tried like
So it
taking
uses
the
different
around.
Wi-Fi access points and
Yeah.
kind of maps out
It
where
does-
the closest
yeah,
ones.
it does it off of the computer that's giving the exam, and it's going to, you have to have Bluetooth enabled, and it pings off of other people's phones that are taking it. So there has to be some kind of mass of students. So you can't, it doesn't work if you have 2 or 3
It's almost like the
students.
Waze navigation app that like gets feedback from other people that are using it
Yep.
as well too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So does
interesting.
everybody have to have Bluetooth on, or just
Yes.
enough? So you have to have Bluetooth on for your attendance to count?
Yes, yeah, and it will tell it, and then it'll tell you, okay, this person didn't have their attendance verified, or we had an incident where someone was 3,000 meters away from where the test was being taken, and I looked it up, and whatever the distance was apparently exactly where the med school is over there.
Uh-huh.
So, but that it's not so exact that it couldn't have, like, someone had their computer on in the med school and then they were still somehow, like, pinging off of a different, there's different cell towers and things like that. But it was interesting because it'll give you, like, down to the meter, like,
Mhm.
where they are, if they're not within the geofence.
All right.
We're gonna have
Yes. Haley and Lauren, any questions from the remote? I'll let them put something in there. Dan has another comment.
I was just gonna add one thing. We talked a lot about the Top Hat, the tool itself, but what I found when I've watched it being used well and not so well in different situations is that it's often what happens before the Top Hat question or during the Top Hat question and what happens after it that really makes it meaningful. Are the students having a chance to engage with one another around the question, talk to each other, try to work and problem solve it? So there's real communication happening. After they get the results, does the instructor look and make a judgment about whether to give feedback, work through the question? What do you do with the results when you see them? Do the students have a chance to talk to each other when they see the results, and so on? And the times when I've seen it not work well is when it's being used almost like just an instant quiz with nothing on either side of it.
Okay, so
especially
things-
when it became a chain of those. I've seen it used once where it was like, top hat question, okay, here's the answer. Top hat question, here's the answer. Top hat question, here's the answer. And that, even after 1 or 2 times, became, why isn't this just a Canvas quiz? If it's not being used to encourage student-to-student interaction, then it's not being used to its full potential.
So things like using the pair and share, where you pose a question, you say, what do you think the answer is? Maybe there's a quick, immediate quiz, answer this, and then stop. All right, talk to your neighbor, defend your answer, think about it, now answer it again. Jerome?
Yeah, so I will say that I've had some really interesting experiences with using Top Hat in combination with Think, Bear, Share this semester.
Yep.
At one time where I asked a question, I asked students to discuss it, and I immediately triggered the Top Hat question. And the minute that Top Hat question went live, conversation completely stopped, and everyone jumped to their device to answer the question. And I learned that don't do that. Ask the question, give them time to answer, then trigger the question. And then in a conversation with Dan, he also really emphasized the possibility of doing a sort of like tiered exercise where they discuss before they answer online, and then they discuss after their reaction to the answers of the community, which is a great model. Takes time, but it's a great model. But really being intentional about when that question goes live, because our students, you've seen it, I'm sure, like you put a device in front of them and they start talking to each other.
Yes, and we've seen that. We had a session on screens in the classroom, and if you don't use them thoughtfully, they will use them the way that they do.
Yeah, I think on I put the question up in my slide, so I use the widget. But I make my own thing. I maybe have more detail and other things, and I show that and ask, and then leave time, and then I'll trigger the question.
Well, we actually open ours as soon as the question goes up. It's just always open, and then we get them talking, and we have TAs circulating, encouraging them to talk.
Yeah,
so
that can work.
that's kind of normalized in the experience. So yeah, and then you all use kind of how many students have answered as a barometer of, okay, this question, my time is, like, we're getting to the point we've got a good number of students who've answered. But I think to your point, if you have this discussion time and then you drop it in the middle, like the timing is right, but if you are interested to do it at the beginning, you just tell your students that we're opening up this question, but you should talk to your neighbors before you answer, that's worked pretty well for chemistry.
So I want to throw out a challenge to all of you who are using it right now, and that is to ask your students, what are the best uses of Top Hat that you've experienced? And see what else. I mean, they have seen dozens of classes, right? And you have seen yours and maybe a colleague's or two. Not very many, right? That might be a really interesting way to get feedback and to get more of those, what are the ideas or the brilliant uses, because somebody might be doing something that we don't know about, and it could be a really great thing to learn about. And then share it back with us. James, you're the last comment, and
yeah, two things. General service announcement. We actually will have a Top Hat rep on campus next Wednesday. So if you have any interest, questions, she will be available to meet and talk. She's got one meeting on her schedule so far. Other than that, she is wide open. And then secondly, we actually did do an evaluation of Top Hat from a student and instructor perspective last year. So we have 1,200 students' opinions of Top Hat. And the single most biggest takeaway students had is my instructor used the results from Top Hat questions to gauge class understanding and reinforce material that was not understood. And 75% of students said their professor did that to their benefit.
Good.
Using Top Hat. So
gauging, we know from the University of Central Florida has done lots of studies on this. If the students feel like their instructor cares about their learning, they will be more successful. So this is a way to get that feedback and to make that happen. Thank you all for coming today. We've got the room for another half hour. But on your way out, if you check a couple of boxes, drop that in the top basket on your way out. Grab some more coffee and fruit and such, and come back to other sessions. Thank you very much.
No, I think that might be interesting. Yeah, because it's